Hey, welcome to my studio. Thank you for stopping by. I want to do a quick overview. I just kind of revamped this a few weeks ago, and I want to give you a picture of the different stations I have in here. So this is one normal American garage. It's about 20 feet by 20 feet, roughly speaking. So this first section is my raw elements. This is where the guy comes and delivers it on a pallet and just wheels it right in here past the blue line, and then we're done. So I buy, these elements are mainly for I do slip casting, and then I make big bulk, like anything that's in a 5-gallon bucket or more. I'll buy the elements for that, for my glazes that I use more often. And so that's where all this stuff, really 90% of this stuff is for slip casting. But that's the first place, and it becomes kind of like a table or something to put stuff on in normal times. Next, right here's my potter's wheel, but right next to my potter's wheel is my shelves just for stuff that just comes off the wheel. So all these is 2x4s mounted into the studs with, I think I used 1 1/4 inch drill bit, and then I put dowel rods in there. And that's all there was to it. Before lumber went sky high, this was the cheapest way. I still think this is probably the cheapest way to get good shelving vertical on your walls. And you got to have good shelving when you're starting a pottery studio. You need something to put your stuff. I like putting it on the wall so you can just see your stuff. Okay, next I got these little desks down here. Again, this is my favorite. These are just 2x4s and 1x2s, and then some hardboard on top. And then I have these 52 quart hefty things that kind of go as shelves. Now you'll see this everywhere. Sorry, I got some larger stuff in here. So I use these all over the studio. I have, I think, 1, 2, 3, I have like 11 of these tables, and I have these trays all over the place. I'll put different things in there. Here's my rolling pins with textures. I got my graduated cylinders for measuring specific gravity, and different cutting tools and caulking guns, all sorts of stuff. We'll talk about 3D printed stamps in a minute. Over here's my Giffen grip. This goes on my wheel. And then this is the new way I've been doing test tiles. So I 3D printed this little, I don't know, like a template, almost like a cookie cutter. And I'll roll out a slab, maybe a 1/4 inch thick, maybe a little thinner. And I'll punch these and I'll make these little test tiles. So you can see these are all the same base glaze. And then these up here are the different cover glazes I'm putting on top. And I'm just trying to see, what does this glaze that I use a lot do on top of this glaze? I'm trying to pick which one of these whites I want the most. And I break it down by price too in my Excel file. So that's how I've been doing test tiles lately. I used to do them like this. I just couldn't get very many that way. So this is my wheel area. This is where my happiest moments come. And so I like to have my wheel, I usually throw on a patty, this little clay patty right here, and I'll put these 6-inch tiles you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot or any hardware store. I just put that on top of my patty. Usually I'll start it up and I'll make some good grooves in there. And then I'll set it on there. And then I just throw it down, and I will throw my pots. And so I'm doing mugs for a coffee shop in Hillsboro right now, and that's what those mugs are right there. So I did that just a few minutes ago, got about 18 mugs. And so a few other things I like about this setup is I have my mirror right here. I like to be able to see my work in profile, so I'm not always just like bending over and moving my body to try to see it. I can just look there and see it in profile. I use these smaller ones for doing lids. I use these smaller ones for doing small pots. And that's about it. These, I don't throw with these, but I use these for everything. Like a lot of my slab work, Christmas ornaments, magnets, or any of that stuff. These are useful for 100 different applications. And these are just 1 foot by 1 foot tiles. These are similar. These are just 1/8 of an inch boards. What else we got? Here's my main table that I work on. So this was just a cheap table I got at Goodwill, and I covered it with canvas. and canvas cleans up real nice. You just take a sponge, you wipe it down, but one of the added benefits is, if you can see over here, you can mark on this, and you can do your to-do lists, and you can write, and then when you're done to erase, you just take a wet sponge and clean it off, and it's all done. So on a normal day, this is filled with glaze recipes or things that I got to remember to do, or things that you're selling on eBay or whatever it is, you know, that kind of stuff. Oh, that stuff is all here. I write down here and make notes. This is my wedging, I don't know what you'd call this. It's just a wedging wire. So this is how I do my stack and slam wedging. So when I'm doing this, I'll just, I have a whole video on stack and slam. I don't know if you guys have, if you should check it out if you don't know the stack and slam method, but it is the best way to wedge your clay, in my opinion. If you don't have a pug mill, and maybe even if you do, it is a great way to wedge your clay and get it all ready to work. Now, this is kind of what I really wanted to show you guys, because so I put 4 of these 2 foot by 4 foot tables together, and I put one solid sheet of wood on top, and this is my new work area. And you can see my lights up there. I got these Harbor Freight lights in these 2 different places, and what they do, I think they're 3,000 or 5,000 watts or whatever they measure, lumens, and I just bounce it up off the ceiling, and I get great ambient light in here. So like I can work at night, and everything is so crisp. Before, I just had these little LED lights over there, and they're sufficient, but it's not like I use these all day, every day, and in the night, and it's wonderful. Moving on around, I got some clay. I got some clay here, and I got clay in the back. Storage, plaster and cement storage, because I don't want those getting wet. But here is my raw elements area for making like test glazes in small batches. So, you know, when you get into the world of mixing your glazes, it is so fun. And every glaze is really like 20 glazes, because depending on how thick the specific gravity of the glaze is, it has a complete, or what it's on top of, it has a completely different effect depending on how you fire it, how the specific gravity of the different glazes that it's interacting with. So this is where I make up those things. Again, it's not like 50 pounds of material, but it's like 2 pounds. And I like to put the cost that I paid for it. So I bought 2 pounds of this stuff, and I paid 76 cents per 100 grams. And that's just so I can keep like a running total. Let me see if I got a picture here. Like here, you can see these are some slip recipes that I use. And I can see the exact breakdown for a 22 gallon, this is like a 5 gallon bucket, 22 pound batch. It cost me $10.40. This one cost me $10.94. This cost me $11. So I can break things down really economically, and I can find out, okay, if I like them both the same, let's use the $10 batch instead of the $20 batch. So here's my library, kind of fitting with my life. It's not that extensive, but I got a few clay books here. The one that I use almost daily is this John Britt book on mid-range glazes. I love this book. I love all these books actually, but this is the one that has like 100 glaze recipes in there, maybe more, probably more, and I just love it. And I've tried most of them. Then more storage area. We'll come on over here. This area is, not many potters are using this, but I think this is one of the most essential tools for pottery right now, which is 3D printers. So you have different kinds of 3D printers. You have the 2 I have here are resin print. I have a resin printer, and I have 2 extrusion printers. This is the Ender 3, I think, and then this is the Prusa. But extrusion printers and resin printers are a little bit different. I'll show you the difference here. On one, I can get crazy detail. So I'm going to put them right here in the gray. So here is an extrusion, a resin printer, and how a resin printer works is it shoots photo light into a basin of resin, and it does that layer by layer. So you can get very crisp detail. An extrusion it's a lot better for building things, like building these cookie cutters and building these Christmas ornament cutters and building really any tool that you need in your studio. But it can't go that detailed. So non-detailed stamps like this one that says Waco, you always want your stamp backwards, right? Because you're printing and it'll be forwards. So I did that with an extrusion printer because it didn't need a whole lot of detail. But this that says Infitarg, or grateful, backwards, that needed a little more detail. So that would not have worked with the resin printer. This one even more so. This is a coffee shop in Hillsboro. Overflow Coffee Shop. Check it out. They're awesome. See that Hillsboro, Texas? This is my finger that's in there. That is so tiny. You could never, ever get that with any extrusion printer that I know of. Anyhow, it is a great tool to have when you're putting different imagery on your pots to make them sell. There's a funeral urn. Okay, we'll keep going this way, brother. Okay, over here, now these shelves, I got these, I want to say a couple years ago, I got them for about $80, $70 on Amazon. They're metal shelves. They hook together really nicely, and this is extra. You can buy this for like 25 bucks to cover it. I'm putting right now my plaster molds in here. Over here, I'm using the same set of shelves, but I use it as a drying rack. So when I want things to dry slowly, I'll just zip it all up. And it will stay dry for a long time, or a lot longer than it would in the open air. So I love these things. They're great shelves if you want something that's just done for you. You don't have to build anything. Not quite as cheap as building on your own, but it works really nicely. And then I have these shelves. So these are not done for you. These are shelves that I make, and I've made several iterations of these shelves, but basically just 2x4s set in concrete in cinder blocks. And then I have 1x2s, or now I use 2x4s running across. And I'll just set, this is all my bisqueware here that needs to be glazed still. I got some little succulent pots, ready for Amazon, ready for the website. If you're interested, jump on and get them. I got candle pots and then some more candles, say hope, and things like Texas shot glasses right there. So this is where I keep my bisqueware getting ready that needs to be fired still. Now some over there has been glazed, and those are going to be candles. They need to be poured, or they just need to be boxed up and sent to Amazon. Also, this is my glaze area. I got these black bins similar to I have down there, and I have glazing tools and materials, and I got some big old glaze buckets. I got some slip and other tools that I've made when I'm glazing. Usually this is a little more clean, but you get to see it raw, right? You don't need it all cleaned up. This is the raw studio right here. But usually I'm working on this table for glazing my pots. And then here, if you want to come face this direction, I don't know how that's going to do with our light, but these are my kilns. So I have Olympic kilns. They're 3.5 cubic feet each, I believe. And I got the same kiln. These are identical kilns. I got them a few months apart, but it allows me to fire alternatively. Like, when you're firing, it's going to ramp up to peak temperature, and then you might slow ramp down, or you might just quit at peak temperature. But that's like 10 hours, and then it's 12 hours down. So rather than having that 12 hours wasted, what I do is once it hits its final temperature, I flip it off. I come over here to the outlet that my electrician buddy made for me, and I unplug one and I plug the other one in. I don't know if you could see that right there. And I plug the other one in, and it works out really nicely. So I can fire really fast. I will say with this setup, I have never reached my capacity to create stuff. I'm always the limiting factor. My pottery setup is not. My kiln setup is not my limiting factor. I cannot produce stuff fast enough to fire in both of these constantly. So I like that setup. You can spend twice as much money on a kiln, or you can buy 2 kilns and you can fire alternatively, and then you're firing more often. You get more iterations. I think I fired around 300 times. So I just started this journey about 3.5 years ago, and I just bought this kiln mid-2019. So 2 years, 300 firings, you get a lot of reps when you have the stuff in your space. So I'm a big advocate of that. I've learned a ton doing glaze tests and tests on my different wares. And then here's all my kiln furniture and stuff that's glazed, ready to go in the kiln. And I think that's about it. I'll say this is, before I had a wedging table, I would use this. This is just a 2x12, or 2x10 rather, a 2x10 inch board, just a board that I put canvas on. And this is what I used to wedge in previous studios, and even when I started this studio. And then it doubles as, when I dip my stuff in the glazes, I put those same dowels in and I set my mugs or vessels upside down on it so it can drip down instead of dripping down the side of the pot. So, and then my compressor right over here. Got my compressor, I got raw elements, I got more molds, and I'm backlit. Hey, thanks for checking out my new studio tour. If you're interested in learning how to make pottery and you'd like my help getting started, then check out my Studio Essentials program. In this program, I walk you through things like what equipment to buy based on your goals and based on your budget, and when to buy it. Then we'll talk about how to set up your home workspace depending on your unique situation. Do you rent? Do you buy? Are you in an apartment? Are you in a house? And then I'm going to teach you the basics of throwing on the wheel, getting some stuff made that you're proud of. My goal is to help beginning and aspiring potters get started in clay. And this course is intended to be the fastest and the cheapest way to get that start. I hope to see you in the course.